Thank you, guys, and welcome back. You can come up now. That's great.
I'm
Welcome
excited.
back to RevU. Evan, thank you for being here. I'm going to sit and talk about you for a second, so if you're
Okay.
going to feel uncomfortable, that's fine. It's going to happen anyway. So, you guys, this is Evan Gentry. Thank you for being here once again. He is the CEO and founder of G8 Capital and M360 Advisors. He's responsible for fundraising and for establishing the strategic and tactical asset allocation of investments. He has 25 years of experience as an entrepreneur in the real estate and technology industries. Prior to G8 Capital and M360, Evan co-founded Moneyline in 1996, which was later sold in 2006? 2006. And throughout his career, Evan has learned how to adapt and to stay ahead of business and staying creative and doing the right thing at the right time. So we're going to chat about that a little bit today. So give it up one more time for Evan Gentry for being here with us. Evan, I'm glad you got here safely from Southern California.
Thank you.
I love Southern California. I wish we were there instead of here, but that's a personal
We are on fire there,
issue.
you know, but
That, you know what? It's hit and miss wherever you go at this point. It is.
it's true.
Evan, I want to kick things off just by talking about your career in general. I understand you've started quite a few companies. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became an entrepreneur?
Yeah, you bet. First off, I'm grateful to be here. Love RevRoad, Darren, and what the team's doing here. It's been able to see Parker grow as part of this team and really been fantastic. So I'm honored to be part of this and to participate today. So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest as a farm boy between Washington State. I don't know, is Joel out there somewhere? Joel Buse? Oh, there he is in the back. So I grew up, Joel's my cousin. We grew up down the road from each other on a country road in Othello, Washington. And then my family bounced between Washington and Alaska. And so I did everything you can do on a farm, you know, as it relates to, when Joel's family went out of town, I'd milk their cow, but you know, digging ditches, changing water, weeding entire fields by myself on my hands and knees, you know, at like 10, 11 years old, going back and forth. And then we go to Alaska, and I would work in fish canneries. I worked in logging. So I did a lot of manual labor work growing up, which I loved. It taught me how to work hard, taught me not to be afraid of work, but it also taught me that perhaps I wanted to do something else with my life. And so by the time I was in high school, I had determined that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I was drawn to the financial industry. And actually, I mentioned to someone that I trusted, that I looked up to, I said, you know, they were asking me about what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said, I like the financial industry and I want to be an entrepreneur. And they said, well, you can't do that. If you're an entrepreneur, you go open a restaurant or something like that. But if you want to be in the financial industry, you got to work up the corporate ladder. And I was kind of bummed about that. I said, okay. A couple years later, I'm in college studying business at BYU, and I learn about this industry, the mortgage industry, providing home loans to people, and a light bulb went off. I thought, well, that's the financial industry, and you can be an entrepreneur. You can actually go create a mortgage company without working up the corporate ladder. And so I wrote a business plan in an entrepreneurship class with Joe Olivier here at BYU, and wrote a plan on starting a mortgage company, and got an A on that paper. And then I went to two of my college buddies, and I said, I'm going to start a mortgage company. Do you guys want to come do it with me? And they said, yeah, let's do it. And about an hour later, one of my buddies said, hey, what's a mortgage? You know, so I was like, okay. So I did talk about what a mortgage was, but he was all in. So we built Moneyline, and over 10 years, like any overnight success, it was more than 10 years in the making. And so we built it over 10 years, grew it. We pivoted very quickly from just a traditional mortgage company to a back office for banks. So if you got a residential loan from Zions Bank in the early 2000s, we did the work and you didn't know it. It was all white labeled. So we had the loan officers on the phone, processed, underwrote, closed the loan, and then grew that to where we had 50 different financial institutions around the country, E-Trade and others, that we were their full back office. So we sold that company in 2006 to a spinoff of GE Capital. And that gave me the platform to then kind of go on and start many other companies. So that's where I came from and how I became an entrepreneur.
Brilliant, brilliant. I love that you adapted early on and said, okay, well, there has to be a different way other than just climbing the corporate ladder, yes?
Yes.
So throughout all of your entrepreneurial journeys and pivoting and all of the things that come with entrepreneurship and being a business owner, what were some of the obstacles that you had to face and overcome?
There's obviously, as any entrepreneur knows, there's so many obstacles that you have to overcome as an entrepreneur. I would say early on in all of the ventures that I started, one of the biggest challenges I don't know if I call it an obstacle, but definitely one of the biggest challenges was finding the right people and getting the right people on board and making sure you had the right people in the right place. When you're starting a company, you want to get the very best people. And so I remember sitting in interviews with people that were extremely talented, quality, the people that I wanted to hire. And I would talk to them, and then they would seem interested, and then they would say, tell me about your health plan and your 401k and your corporate matching. And I would say, I don't know if you heard what I was saying. We are a startup, right? I can guarantee that we're going to change the world. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but we're going to have a lot of fun. And so, you got to try to find the right people, but sometimes you have a miss on that, and you've got to adapt quickly and make sure you have the right people. So to me, your success is greatly driven upon having the right people. And then other times I'd get someone that was great, but they just wouldn't excel in the area that we had them. And I'd figure out, well, maybe they'd be better in this area over here. And so we'd adjust, and all of a sudden they'd be successful, and they'd be happier, and we'd be happier. So I'd say the people make all the difference as an entrepreneur. By the way, I don't consider myself an expert in really anything. I'm involved in real estate, in finance, and investment management, and some technology. But I think of myself as a generalist, and my approach is always to hire the smartest, the brightest individuals to lead the specific area of the business that we're seeking to grow.
The people make all the difference. So when you are going about building teams and making hires, what are some of the qualities that you would look for in these candidates?
So you want someone who has integrity. I mean, there's so many that have kind of lost their way in this day and age, especially in business. So you want someone with integrity that's honest. You'd rather have someone that's honest that makes a mistake here and there than someone who's going to be dishonest and not, integrity is critical, I think, in business. But you're looking for people you hire, and as an entrepreneur, you got to be willing to work hard. You got to be persistent. You got to be able to take your lumps and move on, and not get. Don't stumble at the roadblocks, because there are so many roadblocks that you hit as an entrepreneur. You have to be willing to, you have to be able to adapt quickly and adjust to overcome the challenges that come along, because they come almost every day as an entrepreneur.
So we mentioned that you sold Moneyline in 2006 to a spinoff of G8 Capital, correct?
Correct.
So you went on to start several new companies after that. What led you to start new companies?
So I love to create. I'm creative by nature. I'm not an artist, but I love to create. I like to create in business and to try to change and to help move things forward in unique ways. So to me, it's all about identifying opportunities and seeing where there's an opportunity in the market to create something that can be better than what exists currently, or that can change the way people are doing things. So I really try to seek for opportunities where I can create. So for example, while we were growing G8 Capital and buying distressed assets, while growing G8 Capital, which after we sold Moneyline, G8 Capital was the first company I launched. We bought distressed assets, and I just saw, it was 2007, 2008, huge opportunities with the shift in the market with distressed assets. So we started buying distressed real estate assets because that's where the opportunity was. And I grew that business. We ended up acquiring close to $1 billion of distressed real estate, distressed loans. We bought and flipped about 4,000 homes, moved into commercial. And then just, as the world was changing, we saw additional opportunities by around 2014, 2015. As we were buying and flipping these homes, I saw that there was a lot of opportunity in the real estate industry to change and improve kind of the way homes were sold. So then we launched a company called FSBR.com, which was an online way to help you sell your home more effectively to save some money. And that eventually merged with Sold.com, where I'm the executive chairman. So Sold.com is helping change the industry of how people sell their homes and help matching people with the right way to sell their homes. Around the same time, I launched two businesses at the same time, which isn't highly recommended, but we also launched Money360, a commercial lending business, real estate lending business, because of the financial crisis, there were a lot of regulatory changes. Those regulatory changes made it so that banks were not lending as actively on commercial real estate around the country, so it created an opportunity for private lenders to kind of fill that gap. And so we created a company to fill that gap. So in everything I've done, I've identified opportunities and sought to kind of capitalize on the opportunities that are there. My kids will kind of tease me sometimes because I just look at the world in kind of a business perspective. I kind of think of it like a chess game, and when you're playing chess with someone and they move, when they move, it changes the game, right? So all of a sudden, they may have made a move that you have to look at it and say, okay, are any of my players at risk? And then are there any of their players that are now at risk? And then you adapt kind of what you do for your next move based on what that change was. So I look at the world and I see something that changes, and I said, okay, this just changed, whether it's regulatory or economic or just change in behavior of society. I'll look at it and say, okay, this just changed. What opportunities does this create from a business perspective that people could take advantage of?
So as far as opportunity goes, I would imagine that many of the opportunities you have found started off as a challenge or a change that were then turned into an opportunity, correct? So can you give us a specific example of a challenge that you overcame and turned into an opportunity? Yeah.
Where to begin, right? I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, it's just constant challenge after challenge. And I've always applied the philosophy or sought to apply the philosophy of, as you get lemons, turn them into lemonade. We all know that saying, but as an entrepreneur, you become very familiar with that. When we had just launched G8 Capital, I told Moneyline, I started this investment management company buying distressed assets. We bought a portfolio from Lehman Brothers. So those of you that are younger than 30, you may not remember Lehman Brothers, but they were a big financial institution at the time, and they were struggling, so we bought this distressed portfolio from them. And then they came and said, okay, hey, you executed great on that. We have this larger portfolio that we'd like to, and so we negotiated with them and came to terms on this portfolio. It was between $40 and $50 million deal. For us at the time, that was a really big deal. And I had to turn down several other deals to work on this one big deal. And we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in due diligence, and then I had to go raise all the money, and we were all ready to go. This is like October 2008, and we were going to close on Tuesday, but on Monday, Lehman Brothers filed bankruptcy. And we had spent about 4 months, all of my team, all of our energy, and precious capital to get ready for this deal. And I called my contact at Lehman Brothers, and they said, yeah, we filed bankruptcy, but we can still close the deal if you want. So I said, really? So I called my attorney, and he's like, don't do it. And he explained how, if you feel like you're getting a good deal, the creditors can come back later and say, this happened after bankruptcy, so therefore any money you made should go to the creditors. And he said, they may end up taking all your profits. He says, you absolutely cannot do this deal. And so I sat there with my, my face in my hands for, pretty depressed for an hour or two, thinking, okay, we just spent all this time and energy and money on this deal. I turned down some other good deals, so what do I do now? But by that afternoon, I had come up with the idea that, with them failing, there was a lot of other distress that was occurring throughout the market. And so we crafted an email that afternoon we sent to all of our financial institution contacts that said something like, we were, and this is really early in the distressed buying days, and the email said, we were prepared to close tomorrow on a $50 million transaction. We have all the capital raised, but the counterparty is no longer a going concern. We didn't have to say who it was. Everyone would know who it was. They're no longer a going concern, and so we're looking for additional opportunities. And the market was panicking at this point. We had between 50 and 60 calls that afternoon, all calls and emails and people responding saying, yeah, we have deals we can sell you, we have distressed deals. And then the team that I was working with, Lehman Brothers, that knew we were credible, they all dispersed and went to like all the other companies on Wall Street, and we all of a sudden were, even though we were a small little company from Ladera Ranch, became known across a lot of these major companies, and it was fantastic for our business. It was the best thing that happened to our company. Even though in the moment it happened, I was totally depressed. But within a couple of hours, we pivoted, and the next day, we had more opportunities than we could ever do. So
I really appreciate that you mentioned that you felt discouraged and depressed first, right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have been definitely feeling that this year.
Yes.
And so what opportunities and changes do you see happening in our industry and in our world currently that you would tell entrepreneurs to keep an eye out for?
So, as I talk about change, I think this year has had more change than any of us could ever have imagined, and you can't even count the number of changes that have occurred in the world. It's crazy, and it's heartbreaking, right? There's so many things that are so awful, but as an entrepreneur, you got to put the hat on and say, okay, these changes have occurred, good or bad, whatever they are, and look at what opportunities are created because of this change. And it is unlimited. I mean, just think of every industry that's been impacted, the way we live, the way we operate. It's just, I mean, to think about, for example, people don't want to use currency anymore, so we've moved to this more of this cashless society. So think about the companies that are able to take advantage of those changes. I mean, this is a simple thing that I think a high schooler probably did, but, you know, and I know what happened here, but in California, when we were quarantined, I mean, you really couldn't go. So I have all these kids that had birthday parties and were graduating and couldn't have these celebrations. You know, and someone had the idea, well, let's go sell these signs that we'll put with these letters in people's yards, happy birthday and congratulations. And, you know, they paid for the, you know, we did it, and I'm sure they paid for the cost of the signs with our one purchase, and then they did it over and over and over again. You know, it's a simple little thing, but just trying to say, okay, behaviors change. By the way, I would say, I think the value of DoorDash has probably doubled because of our family and how much we've used DoorDash during the quarantine, right? And so,
Mine too.
So as our behavior changes, it creates opportunity. And as the economies change, as regulation comes into play, there's change. I mean, if you're really, you know, as an entrepreneur, and this sounds corny, but you literally could just track regulation and seeing what laws are being passed and say, okay, how does that change this industry and what opportunities does that create? So I know Parker and his team do that with SkillsTruck in terms of seeing what's happening, you know, from a regulatory perspective and seeing how they can take advantage of those changes. So there's so many opportunities. It's hard to even begin to number them. I think there's opportunities in literally every industry today. And by the way, it's heartbreaking for me that entrepreneurs in general are struggling so much, especially in the big cities. You know, the inner city entrepreneur that has, you know, retail stores. I mean, I read an article that said about 50% of the you know, the retail entrepreneurs in the larger cities, San Francisco and New York, are failing or have failed, and that breaks my heart because it kind of. But there are opportunities that are being created, and in the real estate industry, it's immense. One of the reasons I love real estate is because it cycles. It constantly is going up and down. So there's always opportunities to buy properties, to sell properties, to buy distressed loans, to, you know, so you can ride the wave, and you want to be doing in real estate the right thing at the right time based on what's happening in the cycle.
I would love to talk about real estate a little bit more since you are an expert. What do you foresee for real estate investing, and what advice do you have for people who are interested in real estate investing?
Yeah, so like I said, real estate is fascinating because there's always opportunities in real estate, but you do need to do the right thing at the right time. You don't want to be the one buying something at the peak of the market right before it's going to crash, as an example. And so we actually, as you know, as COVID hit and everything seemed to just kind of freeze, and a lot of people stopped making payments on their homes, on commercial properties. And so we actually began to launch a new fund to buy distressed real estate opportunities, primarily debt. The first opportunities that develop are distressed debt opportunities. So people don't make their payments, so the banks can only hold so many non-performing loans on their books, so they end up selling those loans off at a discount. That's what we did at G8 for 6 or 7, 8 years. And so we began to launch this fund, and then it became apparent that due to you know, the regulation and the you know, kind of the pause on any type of foreclosures and things, the moratorium on those things, it just kind of froze. And so the opportunities didn't really develop. And so as we're tracking it, and our focus today, I started off in residential, but we've pivoted and we're exclusively on commercial today. You know, the opportunities for commercial properties and debt will most likely begin to develop next year because this moratorium has kind of kept everything paused. And so there will be borrowers that will struggle, they won't be able to make their payments, and those will move into, you know, kind of distressed opportunities, but really probably not until first or second quarter. But I would predict that anyone that's interested in distressed real estate debt next year will be easily as good as what we, it's good's an awful way to say it, right? But it's from an opportunity perspective, I think there will be equally as many opportunities as what we saw after the 2008 financial crisis. But it's been delayed. It hasn't come as quickly as kind of that one came. There's kind of a pause right now, but tremendous opportunities to be able to, you know, purchase distressed debt, I think, coming in this coming year.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Of all of your ventures and of everything you've experienced and learned, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned?
That's really hard to say. It's hard to sum it up into one thing or one or two things, but I've learned the importance of integrity. I've had, you know, others that I've known that have not kind of followed integrity and they've taken shortcuts and it's really cost them. So I've seen the importance of sticking to your principles and doing what's right. You'd rather do what's right and fail than go off the path and succeed. So, I think just staying true to your principles. I love the hedgehog principle, and I've studied Jim Collins, and Good to Great's one of the best books on business, and just it really does. You do need to have the passion. You need to be confident in what you're doing as an entrepreneur. But I've also learned that along with that confidence and passion, you have to couple with that humility, because as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to pivot and to adjust. And as you're seeking to find this big, grand idea, you have to pivot often multiple times. I don't think there's not been a single company that I've been involved with that is doing today exactly what we launched to do. We had to adjust and adapt and tweak it to finally figure out what the market needed and what it wanted. So I think being humble and being able to adapt and pivot until you find kind of your core strength that you can really capitalize on.
Brilliant, brilliant. You mentioned your family has been using GrubPass quite a bit, Grubhub?
DoorDash.
DoorDash.
Same concept, yes.
All the things.
Yes, yes.
What role has your family played in your career success?
So my family is everything to me, and it's always been my priority. As an entrepreneur, you get very passionate about what you're doing. My sweet wife has been very good, Sandy, at helping me keep focused. So early on in my career, there were times where I'd be working very late, multiple nights in a row, and sometimes she'd have to remind me, remember, you've got to be home for dinner, and try to help keep me focused. My family has been a great foundation and support for me in everything that I've done. So I really couldn't be more richly blessed. They've been very supportive. As an entrepreneur, I have all these crazy ideas, and some of them are really crazy, right? So my family also helps to keep me grounded in the sense that, sometimes I want to be the fox. I mean, I can easily be, distracted with these other things, but you got to kind of have your core focus and kind of what you're doing. So my family has been really the foundation for me. And by the way, when I talk about humility, if you're lacking in humility, all you need to do is have a couple teenagers, and you're golden, right? But my family is everything to me. It's been my greatest blessing.
I love that. Before we open it up for audience questions, are there any last drops of wisdom you would like to share with us?
Nothing that I can think of right now.
You've got time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to open it up for some audience questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and we have mic runners running around. They will hold a mic in front of you. Please do not touch it. Just speak into it, and we'll go from there. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand.
You and others had mentioned the importance of people and building these businesses, and you talk about how key integrity is in that. How do you vet people? Make sure you get the right ones on board.
That's a great question. So, you can only ask so many questions, and you hope that they're giving you the right answers, but I have found that references are, and literally talking to multiple people that know them and giving, because a lot of people will give you their references and it's like their best friends or they're people that you expect they're going to give you who's going to say something good, but you almost have to give that person a chance to. I just had this experience yesterday where I had someone applying for a job and they had worked for someone previously that I knew, and people don't want to say bad things about people, right? And so I shot him an email. I said, hey, this person's applying for us. I see they worked for you. Is there anything? And I just said, I didn't want to waste his time, make him think he had to write a whole paragraph or something. I said, just let me know if it was you interviewing this person again, would you pass or would you consider him? Just respond with pass or consider. And he didn't answer that exactly, but he gave me one sentence that gave me the answer I needed. And so just trying to check. One of the things that I've done, which I think is a little bit unique, is I've actually typically gone and kind of headhunted. I don't employ headhunters, but I try to find the people that I want as opposed to just having them find me. So I've spent a lot of time, some of my best hires have been people I found on LinkedIn. I go on LinkedIn, I put the area, I put the skills that I'm looking for, I see who pulls up, I go connect with them, and then I reach out to them and say, hey, you willing to meet? And I've hired some great people that way. And so it's hard, and you're going to miss it sometimes. Sometimes you just miss, and one of the things I've learned is you're better to, if you make a mistake in hiring, you're better to correct it sooner than later, because it just doesn't usually solve itself, and it just makes it worse for everyone.
Evan, great job. Evan, great job. That was an awesome presentation and a great Q&A session. My question is this: you mentioned earlier, and I don't believe this. You said, I'm more of a generalist and not a specialist. I'm sure you're an expert in many, many things, but that seems to have worked well for you in real estate. Are there other industries in which that would apply, and that's a good strategy? What are your thoughts on that?
I'll be honest, I think it applies to most strategies. To be an effective entrepreneur, you need to be a people person, and you need to be good at evaluating others' skills and helping. Man, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You're trying to figure out, where do I put all these great, wonderful, qualified people? How do I organize them in a way that will allow us to be successful? You know, when you're growing a business, to me, the business is the product. A lot of times we think in terms of, you know, here's our company and we create a product or we produce a service. But I try to think of the business as the product, and how do we perfect this product, which is the company? Because if the company is, you know, and it's never perfected, you're always trying to get better and better and constant improvement. But if you perfect that, then the end result is you have a great product, a great service, and great customer service. So I don't know if that answers your question, but to me, it really is finding the most qualified, you know, the people that are the smartest. I seriously try to surround myself with people that are a lot smarter than I am, and it's worked well for me. So.
Awesome. Quick question. This is Jerem. I'm interested because you started the mortgage company when you're at BYU.
Yeah.
And I know probably in your classes they aren't teaching you how to start a mortgage business right away. Yeah. And I'm interested to see, along with when you got into real estate, what were the avenues you took to learn that information? Was it books, a mentor? I'm interested to see how you took that.
It's actually, I don't tell the story that often, but when we launched, I think I was 23 years old. I'm an undergraduate business student at BYU, and I decided we want to start a mortgage company. So I actually I didn't know anything about mortgages. Who am I? I'm just a kid. And so we actually went to, one of the guys I interviewed as part of this paper that I wrote was a local gentleman, a guy named Brian, that I knew from church, and he owned a little mortgage company. And so I went to him and I said, hey, Brian, I'm gonna start a mortgage company. Now, I don't really know much about it. I wrote a paper on it, and I interviewed you and 2 others. I said, but I don't have, without experience, I'm not gonna be able to get licensed. I'm not gonna be able to get lenders that will partner with me to let me originate loans that they would buy. I said, but with your name, we could do that. And so I convinced him to be a 25% partner in the company for 6 months with the option to buy him out at a certain price. And the deal was that it wouldn't take very much of his time. We'd ask for a little bit of time to help us understand some basics. And with his name on the company as an experienced, another owner of a mortgage company, we got licensed. We were able to get lenders on board with us, Zions Bank and others that became our lender partners. And then 6 months, we paid him off, and he was happy, and we were happy, and we were in business. And so it's just, you got to get creative. And again, I found a guy that was smarter and brighter and had more experience than I did, and kind of leveraged that. And then later on, my first 10 years was all residential. And then I realized I really wanted to pivot to commercial. And I'll tell you how that happened. In residential, during the G8, we were buying these distressed loans, and I didn't want to, it's just so hard. The homeowners, and it was a really messy business. I didn't want to be in the business of kicking people out of their homes. I didn't like that. So we pivoted pretty quickly to commercial, and found commercial property owners they're business people. They're pragmatic, and you can buy their loan, and then you can go work it out with them. You can find creative solutions that work for both parties. But when I pivoted from residential to commercial, I didn't know much about commercial. So I went on Amazon. I ordered 8 or 10 books, and I just kind of devoured them. And then I could act like I kind of knew it. And I went and hired people smarter than myself, and we became in commercial lending, we've loaned out over $2 billion in the last few years. But I have team members that have 25, 30 years experience, to know how to originate, how to underwrite, and I oversee it all. But again, they're the experts, and I kind of help coordinate it.
So with all the companies that you've started, have you ever hired any friends or family and then had to let them go? And if yes, how did that go?
so so my first business it was two of my best college buddies, and that actually worked out really well for us, and we got along well, and it was a good experience. I've hired, I don't think I've had any family that I've had to let go. There's been people that I've known in the community, and it's just, I try to be very aware and sensitive, and most people understand if it's not working out, right? Most cases, they understand and they kind of get it. So my experience has been just to sit with someone and be transparent through the whole time. You don't want someone to be caught off by surprise that it wasn't working. And so my philosophy in business has always been to be kind of the walk around, open style, and just communicate, have a flat organization, and let people know all along kind of where they stand, where they're excelling, where they can need improvement. And I ask people to do the same for me. I mean, tell me where I can improve and where we can do better as a company, or where I can do better personally. And so, yeah, I've had circumstances where I had to sit down with people and say, it's not working. But in those cases, in a lot of those cases, I've been able to help them find other jobs. You know what I mean? So just to kind of work with them and say, hey, this isn't working because I don't think this is the right thing for you. But there's several people that have changed their careers, and I've kind of been able to open doors to get them somewhere else. So you just want to be sensitive and try to help people where you can. But if it's not a fit, then you need to make a change. And it's better for everyone. It's better for them to get somewhere where it's a good fit as well.
I have been so impressed with Parker here at RevRoad. It's been so fun to see. I remember when he presented Skillstruck as the coding camps, and it's been amazing to see him pivot and come through this. And he brings so much composure and maturity to what he's done. It's easy to be impressed with him. And obviously, as his dad and his mom, you guys must be really impressed or just so proud of him, I guess. I'm wondering, is there something in your family that you've done or that you've been focused on to help, build an entrepreneur like this, right? You're talking about how you view the company as the product. To some degree, we can kind of make a similar reference towards children, right? As far as being, So if you wouldn't mind speaking to that, just as far as the environment that maybe you've created at home, I'd love to hear about.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I agree wholeheartedly on Parker and what he's accomplished and what he's done. And we're obviously super proud as parents. And by the way, Parker, for the most part, came this way. I don't know that we created this. I think this is kind of just who he is. But, again, as a family, we try to be open in our discussions, and my kids have been aware, I think, for the most part, of the things I'm doing in business and when I'm starting something new. And so I think they've seen that, and they've seen kind of the sacrifices and the ups and the downs. Again, for whatever reason, I just kind of see the world like this chess game I talked about, and so so things change. I mention them to the kids, and I'll give you one example. And my kids have gotten so annoyed because it keeps coming up. But about 8 or 10 years ago, we're at a church activity, a fundraiser, and I'd been involved in those for years. And at the end, you got to collect the money, and it's people are writing checks or they're giving you cash, and it's kind of always this awkward thing. And then, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I'm at this fundraiser, and I go to pay, and I'm getting my checkbook out, and they're like, oh, no, we can just do credit card on my phone. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And on their phone, they had a little plug-in on their phone, and they just swiped my credit card, and it was done. Now, for a lot of you, you're like, yeah, that's common everyday thing, but it was not 10 years ago, I can tell you. And I'm like, what is that? And they're like, it's Square. It's just this thing, and I thought, that's going to change everything for anyone that does any kind of home service or think about every plumber now. They can just go swipe your card, and so I went home and I researched it and I bought Square stock because I'm like, this is awesome. This is going to change things. And the stock it's gone up 10 times from when I bought it. And so my kids, every time we go shopping, we're at the store, I'm like, that's Square, you guys. We love Square. We're big fans of Square. We've talked a lot about, business, and we'll go to a restaurant and we'll talk about, if it's empty, think about their expenses. How do they make money? How are they going to survive? How long is this business going to make it? Because they don't have revenue. And so we talk about kind of finances and business ideas in our home. So, but our kids, they came that way. We're lucked out.
Brilliant. Well, I want to stay on theme, and we did see a fox dog today. We saw a hedgehog. Yeah. I'm basically a leopard today. So I also heard you have some experience with bears.
Bears, yes. I don't know if it relates to, although I'm sure there's a way to apply this to business. Just quickly, when I was working in Alaska with one of my jobs, I was working in forestry, and I was out, miles away from the truck, and I was doing like marking where they should log, where they shouldn't log, and it had gotten confusing about knowing what to do. I was kind of like doing the environmental part of logging, if that makes sense, in terms of creating buffers around the creeks and different things. And I wasn't exactly sure how to do it, and so my dad was running this operation, and so I convinced him to come out with me this particular day. And so we went out there, and we're working, and my dad's a big outdoorsman. We come into this open area, and this is an island in Alaska. I mean, we are a long ways from anywhere. And we come into this opening, and my dad says, "Do you smell that?" And I said, "What?" He's like, "That's a buck deer." I said, "Okay." And he gets out a little ribbon. My dad is awesome. And he blows on this ribbon, and I've seen him do this before. What happens is it sounds like a fawn in distress. And so when you do it, the deer will run up to you and will literally like run circles around you. He's done it in his truck before. Like we'll pull up, we see deer, he'll blow on this ribbon, and the deer will come up and run around. They're looking for this fawn in distress. And so he blows on this ribbon, and when he does so, about, I don't know, maybe where that black curtain is, this giant grizzly bear just stands up like this. And it was fall. This was like late October. And so my dad had been telling me for a while, all the bears are hibernating. We don't need guns. They're all hibernating by now. And lo and behold, this bear was not hibernating. It started running toward us. And we started running. I look back, and it's not one bear. It's 3 bears. It's a huge, like 800-pound mama grizzly and 2 cubs. But these are big. These are big Kodiak grizzlies. These are not Yellowstone scared of you bears. These are bears like they rule the forest. And so I turn around, and there's a mom and these 3 bears, all accused, but particularly the mom, that are coming at us full steam, and we're miles from our truck. And my dad doesn't have a gun, doesn't have anything. I had bear mace that earlier in the day it had fallen off my side, and I'd gone into this creek and get it and put it was on the inside of my coat pocket. My coat's zipped. I have a scarf on. I have gloves on. We're running. My dad's yelling, "Get the mace! Get the mace! Get the mace!" And then I'm running, and I'm just panicking, and then I fall down. I turn around, and they're like, where this back row is right here. They're coming on just full steam, and so they're probably 2 seconds away from devouring me. And so I thought, well, I got to get the mace. And so I take my gloves off, I get the mace out, and I start spraying it, and they're like 15 feet in front of me, just coming straight on me. And I unload like this can of bear mace, and it created this cloud, and they kind of scurried, and then they ran off the other way. It was very, very scary. And then at that point, the wind was blowing our direction.
Oh, no.
You guys, oh my goodness. And so within seconds, it just hit me. And it was like a can of bear mace, pepper spray bear mace in your eyes. So anyway, I got connected up with my dad, and we walked miles all the way around back to where our truck was. For days before that, I was out there alone, and I kept hearing this rustling in the forest. And I'd go back and tell my dad, "There's loggers out there. There's someone out there." And he's like, "Oh, it's just deer. It's just deer." My mom was like, "Dawn, are you sure?" Anyway, so by the time we got back, my mom was not very happy that there actually were legitimate bear that almost ate us that day. But that was a very interesting experience.
Brilliant. Well, for our last and final question, this is our tradition question. What is something fun that your success has allowed you to do?
So we love to travel as a family, and so we've been able to go on lots of family trips, kind of around the world, and not the whole world, but we've been to some great places in Europe and South America, and so just being able to travel together as a family, I think, has been a really great blessing for us. Growing up in the U.S., in the communities a lot of us live in, it's kind of a bubble, and our kids don't really have kind of full exposure to what the rest of the world's like. So I think being able to get out, I think, and enjoy and kind of see the world and see how others live, and has been a great blessing for us. It's been a lot of fun for me. That's one of my favorite things we've done, is do family trips together.
Brilliant. Well, Evan, it has been great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Let's give one last thank you to Evan Gentry.
Thank you.
Just before you go.
Okay.
I
My
mean,
legs asleep.
that was awesome. Who liked the bear story?
There you go.
Yeah, and all the cool things we learned about business today. How cool is that? And Parker, thank you for encouraging Bree to ask about bears. That was great. we have some, this direction. We have some RevRoad gifts for you that we hope you'll enjoy.
Thank you very much.
And I just want you to know, I sure appreciate you. I've learned so much from you, not only today, but previous to that in our other conversations and through the things that Parker has shared with me, that you've shared with him. And we're all
Thank you.
grateful. So let's give another round of applause to
Thank you,
Evan
Darren.
Gentry.
We appreciate it. Thank you.